In 1909, if you were seeking entertainment, you take the streetcar to vaudeville shows, Nickelodeons, gambling, billiards halls. It is the era of cheap amusements.
Month by month, new transit lines push out of crowded neighborhoods to the edge of the city. People go there seeking thrills, music, fast food, and dazzling amusement rides. Now, on a Monday morning in April, something new.
It looks like you're entering a cathedral. There are long lines which circle around the whole block at 21st and Lehigh.
The grandeur is a bit of a trick dreamed up by a slick entrepreneur, Benjamin Franklin Shibe, to turn the rough game of baseball into spectacle. A place to see and be seen, Shibe Park is the first modern ballpark. And today, opening day, people have been lining up since 7 a.m.
The crowd outside is so massed and so huge and so eager to get in that they push past the line of Philadelphia's finest who are guarding the stadium and take over right center field.
When Shibe Park opens in 1909, Shibe and Connie Mack see to it that they will have the best baseball talent that the game has to offer.
With the first pitch at 3 o'clock, more people are watching in the grandstand, in the outfield, on the roofs of the houses across the street than have ever seen a baseball game.
The Athletics beat the Red Sox 8-1, but it's not so much the score or even the game itself that's important.
After the A's win, the fans storm on to this brand new ball field and conduct this kind of modern urban celebration at 5:30 in the afternoon on that April day.
Philadelphians come together. Their love for their city and their team is palpable.
It feels like a new era has begun. After the turn of the century, tens of thousands of immigrants arrive in Philadelphia every year. From Italy, from Russia and Poland, Ireland, Greece, and Lebanon. Altogether, 1 million people will enter America at the Washington Avenue Pier.
Jobs were here. It was an opportunity for you to provide for yourself and to provide for your families. That really made for one to say, look, I really want to be here in this place called Philadelphia.
My family were settled at the base of Mount Etna, which is Europe's largest active volcano. The story was that my great-grandmother looked out her window and saw the entire side of the road and all the houses across the street just go into the ground. And then went into shock, didn't speak for over a year. And my great-grandfather said, it's time to go. So they left, and they ended up at 9th and Christian with no volcanoes.
What brought them here was the land of opportunity jobs. On one house, we had 3 families, 1016 Ellsworth Street. Each family had under 1 floor. And we never knew we were poor. It was so interesting.
Philadelphia was really a great experiment. How do you make America become what it is destined to be, which is a place for everyone?
My grandfather came from Kiev, moved around to a number of different homes in South Philadelphia. One day, I went to the house that my grandfather lived in with his first wife. Nothing had been changed, including the chandelier. And I had just this overwhelming feeling. It was a wonderful feeling. It was thrilling to be there.
In the Jewish enclave of South Philadelphia, the family of young Avrum Greenfield, immigrants from Kiev, moved from house to house. While his parents and siblings find work in factories, Avrum dreams of something more.
He had vision. He leaves school and he gets a job as a clerk for a real estate lawyer.
You have a very feisty, optimistic human being here who, from the time he was little, thought he could do anything. If I want to change my name from Avrum Moshe Grunfeld to Albert Monroe Greenfield, I can do it.
As a lot of immigrant families did, there was always one person that the family said, okay, you're the one. You're going to take us forward.
But as Albert Greenfield charts his course, boys and girls on his block and across Philadelphia confront a grim reality of industrial city life.
As a group, immigrant kids were headed for textiles. That's what you did. Those were the most plentiful jobs. They were the ones your parents could get for you. That's where you were headed.
At the turn of the century, the owners of the textile mills, they discovered a source of cheap and abundant labor. Children, 8, 9, and 10 years old.
Children were injured in the mills over and over. They lost fingers, they lost hands. Thousands of children, 60 hours a week, and earning the princely sum of $2 for that week.
More than 50,000 men, women, and children work in Philadelphia's 600 wool mills, dye houses, sweatshops, carpet factories, weaving shops, and hosiery, upholstery, and leatherworks in the largest textile center in the world.
The work was dirty and dangerous and hard and grueling, and the conditions were often extreme in terms of temperature, humidity, fire, smoke.
Some of the new machines had fast-moving spools and machinery that children were often used to replace and repair. So their small hands were able to go into these complex machines, and this led to, as can be imagined, some pretty serious injuries.
Industrial giants owned those mills and wielded influence in politics at the city and state and federal level.
Philadelphia's Republican machine, the organization, protects textile profits with aggressive tariffs and defends the mill owners' practice of hiring children.
A mill operator could pretty much get away with unsafe working conditions, and there was no OSHA to stand in the way.
With textile magnates and their allies in the organization unwilling to compromise on pay, hours, and working conditions, workers strike in May 1903. The 46,000 strikers draw the attention of a courageous Irish immigrant, Mary Harris Jones, Mother Jones.
Mother Jones suffers terrible trauma and the death of her husband and her 4 children from yellow fever when she's very young. And she becomes a truly fearless crusader out of that trauma.
Mother Jones becomes the leader of the biggest industrial strike in the city's history. Thousands and thousands of men, women, and children walk off the jobs. 550 of some 600 textile mills in Philadelphia are shut down.
She had a spirit about her
Do not underestimate the power of Mother Jones.
She understands one very, very important thing about child labor, which is it's cheaper than adult labor. And as long as employers can put children in the factories, they will not pay a living wage to adults.
She knew something about textiles and about children, but she also knew that she needed the media, the newspapers, to publicize the abuses that she had seen.
She couldn't get the newspapers to write about, so being fearless, she confronted reporters and asked why. She thought it was a good story. They explained to her that the mill owners were investors in the newspapers, to which Mother Jones replied, well, I got stock in these children, and I'm gonna get some publicity.
Mother Jones gathers the marchers for a press conference aimed at City Hall.
Up on the platform, Jones brings some of the children that she met in the mills, many of them with missing hands or missing fingers. And she holds those children up on the platform and writes later about how light they were. There's officials up there in the city's government building, City Hall, looking down as this Irish woman is holding up these emaciated children with fingers missing.
The politicians in City Hall are not moved. They allow the textile magnates to break the strike and force the workers back to the mills with no concessions.
So Mother Jones brings hundreds of children, starts a march, and says that they're going to go all the way to President Theodore Roosevelt, a major publicity crusade for the plight of these young children.
When you arrive here, you're staying with your cousin, your sister, somebody who you met at the train station. And so you have to form new community and really form new family.
The promise of a better life attracts thousands of African-American families to Philadelphia in the first years of the 20th century. John and Annie Anderson and their daughters move up from Virginia to a row house in South Philadelphia.
The first wave of migration came without notice and without warning. From South Carolina, from North Carolina, from Virginia.
Millions of people are leaving their homes to escape the agricultural suppression of the South, to experience the opportunities and the freedoms that are available to them in the North, or so that they think are available to them in the North.
Though an experienced teacher in Virginia, Annie Anderson can't get a teaching position in Philadelphia. Unlike their white peers, black teachers must be certified.
If you go into the expanding manufacturing districts here through Kensington all the way up to Tacony, you will not find a single African American on payroll. If they are, they're in janitorial positions.
John Anderson is hoping that maybe he can get a job. Unfortunately, those are jobs for white men only. Best he can do is hauling coal and ice.
A black man can walk any street in Philadelphia, but he still doesn't feel like a full citizen and doesn't have equal opportunities in employment or education or housing.
John Anderson finds dignity as a deacon of the Union Baptist Church and takes his oldest daughter, Marian, along whenever he goes.
Even on a little bit, we were able to sustain ourselves because what the church provided was an institution where people, first of all, could feel that they were somebody.
I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around, turn me around. It was that spirit that led people here to Philadelphia, and it was that spirit that made sure they became successful and excelled.
In 19-year-old Albert M. Greenfield, Philadelphia awakens boundless confidence hundreds of thousands of new residents feed an endless need for new houses and new neighborhoods. Albert makes his move. He borrows $500 from his mother to become a real estate developer.
An immigrant and a Jew, there were lots of places in elite Philadelphia that were simply closed to him altogether. Real estate, on the other hand, if you're good at it, allows you to build from the bottom up.
You have to deal with the world beyond you. You're no longer provincial like everybody else in your community because you are now connected to the larger world of the city.
He had a tremendous amount of energy. His real estate signs were all over the city. The green sign that said Albert M. Greenfield Company were everywhere.
Albert Greenfield sees a place of tremendous opportunity. He's going to change it. Greenfield is already looking to the future.
Greenfield's Philadelphia saw its public life, its public spaces transforming overnight because of the emergence of new forms of mass entertainment. Folks jumped at opportunities to get out of their houses.
At their dazzling new stadium, the Athletics draw more fans than any other American League team in 1909. The next year, manager Connie Mack's club wins their first World Series, beating the Chicago Cubs 4-1.
They hit and ran, they bunted, they moved runners over. They were a very efficient team in the mold of Connie Mack.
His approach to baseball was very analytical, a more intellectual, cerebral point of view, not just, oh, it's just a game. Mack was always well-dressed. He was always well-spoken.
When these ball players, when he would hear them curse, he would say, "Enough of that, Mr. Grove. Please don't speak in a loud voice, Mr. Fox."
He actually would not tolerate ball players who drank too much or got involved with petty crime.
Mack's studious approach is enough to beat the Cubs in the 1910 World Series. But to prove his team is for real, the A's will have to defeat the menace of early baseball.
The A's were on the cusp of a dynasty. The only team that could possibly challenge them would be John McGraw's New York Giants.
For a long time, Philadelphia was the second city to New York and always was struggling to achieve some kind of moral or urban parity with New York. And from the point of view of Philadelphia, Connie Mack is a gift from heaven.
Whereas when they saw John McGraw, they saw everything they didn't like about New York. It was rough, it was tough, it was nasty, it was profane.
To defeat the New York Giants in the 1911 World Series, Mack's team will have to overcome the great pitcher Christy Mathewson and endure 5 days of rain. In the decisive Game 6, the A's score 7 runs in the 7th inning and run away with the championship, 13-2. 2 years later, they dismiss McGraw's Giants in just 5 games, the A's 3rd championship in 4 years. Philadelphians have a true reason to boast.
They were, without question, the best team in baseball. Once Connie Mack showed up with a team that could compete and could win, fans flocked toward them.
Early on, Marian Anderson's parents realized that there was musical ability within her. They often spoke about her having a hum, that she would just go around the house humming. And Anna would remark to John that there's something in that humming bee, and we have to try to give it an outlet.
She begins to sing in choirs, first at Union Baptist Church, and then as a soloist in the People's Chorus.
She would sing from soprano to baritone, and the church loved her. They embraced the sound. They embraced what they saw as a God-given gift.
That was the joy to hear Marian sing. Her voice was so unusual. Once you heard that voice, you heard no other. It was so unique.
In 1910, news comes that her father, working at the Reading terminal, is struck by a steel beam. Refused treatment at the hospital because of his race, he dies from the injuries. Marian's mother takes a job scrubbing the floor at Wanamaker's.
After her father died, she got to have some lessons, but they didn't start right away because there was no money to pay for the lessons.
A woman named Ida Asbury, who was a product of the Institute for Colored Youth, through a gala, through a fundraiser, neighbors pitched in. $600 was raised, and that allowed Marian Anderson to start her career getting singing lessons.
Marian's voice teacher, Giuseppe Boghetti, encourages her to apply to the Philadelphia Music Academy, one of the top conservatories in the nation.
Mr. Boghetti, when he heard her voice, he said, in a year or two, you'll be able to sing anywhere.
Inside the academy, Marian joins the line of prospective students in the registrar's office.
All the white kids in line get served and fill out the form before the woman behind the reception desk gets to Marian Anderson.
She was told, we do not accept any Negroes at the Philadelphia Academy for Music and Art, and we never will.
Marian Anderson's door will open in Europe, where music lovers embrace her. Only then will she be offered top billing in America.
The tension in Philadelphia that is perennial is the open-armed welcome to the ambitious, the full of vision, the young, the upstart. But the mature city of the early 20th century has also clamped down on the spirit of newness, the spirit of innovation, because anything new introduced into the city is a threat to the power of the organization, which is rock solid corrupt and defensive and unimaginative and unable to make the future happen.
But where so many are content with the status quo, Albert M. Greenfield sees opportunity. After a decade of developing new neighborhoods at the city's edge, Greenfield is flush with cash. He sets his eyes on Center City, where big dreams can take hold.
Center City in 1920 was really a daytime city. After 5 o'clock, everybody went home, and Greenfield started snapping up properties.
He meant to change the way things were done. He wanted to teach the fading WASP elites how to be modern people.
Greenfield will finally make his mark alongside the banks and law firms of Center City, building department stores, hotels, movie palaces, a hub of public life.
He built high-rise buildings which are still standing today. His company is doing $100 million worth of business, the largest real estate company in America.
He walked the city. He knew every stretch of the city. There's no question that he was in touch with the city from the ground up.
As far as he was concerned, he was the second coming of Ben Franklin. Greenfield sees Philadelphia in a totally new light from anybody else who's been there.
He always wanted Center City to be a powerful life force for the region. He saw that much earlier than many people did.
Greenfield believes that Center City will be the driver of Philadelphia's future. And at his office on Walnut Street, he imagines new ways to awaken the political and civic culture of Philadelphia.